becoming a true saint are now the actual words of Jesus.
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountains, and he began teaching them, saying, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they insult you and persecute you, and utter every kind of evil against you falsely because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated. I have a confession to make. Before I was ordained, like everything else, there was all kinds of paperwork and testing. I even had to have a syphilis test. And one of the things I had to sign and solemnly declare was that I had never been married. And I have to admit now that I perjured myself when signing the document, because I had once got married years ago. I think her name was Leslie. What I know for sure is we were very much in love. We said our vows. We had hoped to live together in great happiness for the rest of our lives. And it was working fine, but her parents, unfortunately, were against the marriage. They were so opposed to the marriage that they kidnapped Leslie, took her away from me, and I never saw her again. And so I was left a very depressed, lonely, hapless little 5-year-old. I was so traumatized by this, I went to the seminary and became a Christian. Now, as a 5-year-old, and I think Leslie was 6, which explains my always fascination with older women. A 5-year-old, even though I said the words, I didn't actually get married, right? Because I wasn't capable of it as a 5-year-old. I just seemed like a fun thing to do at the time. And of course, we don't hold children accountable for commitments and words and all that the way we hold adults do. Children just aren't capable of that. But the constant question always arises, at what point do you go from childlike unaccountability to full adult accountability? It's not as simple as a birth date anymore. It's complicated psychologically, legally, all that sort of thing. I need to tell you that one of the things I do is I teach people who are mandated reporters for child abuse. And one of the difficult things to tell them when and how to report child abuse is when 2 young people hook up with each other. At what point is that statutory rape or something reportable? And I have to give out this chart. This is how weird it gets. This is a chart where I look at the age of one person and then the age of their partner, and I see where they intersect on the chart here. you know, a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. Is that okay? And then I look on this chart and it tells me whether I have to report that or whether I can use my clinical judgment, as they say, and maybe report that. All on this handy dandy chart. See, isn't that what it says? See how strange and bizarre and complicated that concept of childhood versus adulthood can be. Any of you go trick-or-treating last night? Grandma? You know, we've all had experience with that. One thing about children versus adults that the psychologists or the social scientists talk about is you define the difference between a child and an adult by something called delayed gratification. Right? When the children got home from trick-or-treating, at least I certainly did, they wanted to eat all the candy right now. It's all about me and it's all about right now. Adults, theoretically, learn the concept of delayed gratification, and you can do work and actually wait a couple weeks where you get a paycheck. And you can live quite well with that. Unless you teach at Cal State Long Beach, you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for your check, right? Yes, I know that's right. So, maturity means delayed gratification, at least part of it is. That you can live with some kind of discomfort now in hopes of a future reward. Well, it kind of works that way spiritually too. But we live in a world that's spiritually quite immature, and I'm very much a part of it. I want things now, right? I carry this thing in my pocket that I revolve my whole life around this thing that lets me make a phone call now, receive a phone call now, read my email now, send my email now, buy a cheeseburger with it now, shop on eBay now, because that's what modern society and culture is teaching me about success is, and I'm sucked into that. Buy anything off of Amazon lately? Whoa! Talk about now. Amazon talked the post office into making Sunday deliveries now. They got famous for this 2-day delivery thing. Now, you can order things off of Amazon in the morning and receive it in the afternoon. That's how quick it is, and how competitive that market must be, because people want things now. The first gospel that Gary read was what society says is mature. Maturity defined by how best, how fast, and how much whatever I do benefits me. It's all about me. And because of that, everything that's marketable, everything that defines your role in the world is absolutely, utterly self-focused, selfish, if you will. And if you make it and you got some crumbs left over, fine, sprinkle them around for everybody else. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking care of me, but ultimately, that's very childlike, because it does not benefit the world. When it only benefits me, I think everybody loses, including me. If we put God in that equation, if we make God the absolute, then we can put ourselves second. If we do that the right way, it'll all work out quite nicely, because if we truly have God as the dominant factor of our adult accountability, then we know we're going to do it right and treat others as we would treat ourselves. And that in taking care of me, we would never do that purely in a purely selfish way. And so the saints, people, the saints we know about and can name, are people who took this gospel quite seriously, took the notion of delayed gratification quite seriously. Because this gospel basically talks about pain, misery, suffering, loss that you might feel in serving and loving God in this life will be noticed. It will be counted. And it will affect your place in eternity in the next life. And so Jesus is telling his disciples to take comfort in knowing that in not only in the good times but in the bad times, God is there. And our reward in heaven will be great. So the saints are simply people that took that quite seriously and in a way that other people noticed. And they did it so well that people wrote books about them and they became models of virtue. I know 20 years ago this month I was stationed in Paris, France for 4 months to do nothing but study everything I could possibly learn about Saint Vincent de Paul. I lived at the monastery where his body was. We had to read everything he ever wrote. They put us on buses and took us everywhere he ever even had lunch. Vincent de Paul, Vincent de Paul, Vincent de Paul, because he was a great saint and a great model of studying. But saints like that aren't the only saints that we honor and celebrate. Since we know saints don't have to be perfect, well then maybe your grandmother is rightly called a saint. We'll be celebrating her in a special way tomorrow night on All Souls Day, when we talk about the saints who we pretty much know and believe are in heaven, but just aren't in the book, because they weren't famous enough. But anyone we know that had a piece of God's love, mercy, kindness, compassion, and was able to demonstrate that in their lives, no doubt is a saint. And so hopefully we've all had some saints in our lives. Imperfect people, yet somebody that was really good at this or really good at that. Their love of God, their service to others, their love of family, the skills they used to serve and build the kingdom of God. Whatever way they did it, we've got a piece of that. And if we have been good students to the saints that God sent us that touched our lives and were with us on holidays, that were part of our lives that taught us great things, then we truly honor those people if we commit ourselves to being their students and to learn from them. And so let us commit ourselves to the gospel of Jesus Christ, the gospel that teaches us that spiritually speaking we should be adults, that our delayed gratification can come much later in life, and that God will indeed keep his promises. This is part of our faith which we now stand before.